Ortiz Franklin. She is a published poet, playwright, and fiction and nonfiction writer. Clifton and Charnel have 6 children, ages 7 to 14 years old. Jasmine, Clifton the third, Olivia, William, and Sydney, Quinn, and Michael. They reside in Carson, California. Chris and Joanna Kay. They are the founders of the We Are One Marriage Summit. The We Are One Marriage Summit was birthed out of the vision to seek and provide tools for healthy marriage while cultivating relationships with other couples that help strengthen our marriages. We believe that we are graced to love one another only when we are walking, clinging, and rooted in Christ, which enables the fruits of the Spirit to flow within our marriage. Chris and Joanna are both accomplished in their respective fields. Chris is a realtor and holds a degree in property management as a residential manager. He successfully manages over 600 units for 14 years. He is currently completing his bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in social inequality at California State University, Fullerton. Joanna has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in education, both obtained from University of California, Santa Barbara, and has been an educator for over 13 years. She currently teaches language arts within the newly founded Musical Entertainment and Digital Arts Magnet on the campus of Carson High School, and was recently appointed their equitable grading and instruction coordinator. Chris and Joanna share a passion for the music industry. They currently serve in the music ministry at Faithful Central Bible Church, where Chris is the director of special projects for music and arts, and together lead the Fresh Generation Young Adult Choir. They are both former members of the acclaimed gospel recording choirs, LA Mass Choir and Victor Bell and Hillel. Their love for ministry and people has propelled them into a season of responsibility as they obey the call of God to cultivate and nurture relationships with married women. Chris and Joanna reside in Long Beach with their 3 boys, Carl, Jonathan, 8, Jeremiah Christian, 7, and Caden Joshua.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
We have some experienced people up here. So awesome. I want to kick off our discussion today with what were some of the foundational principles you guys learned at the beginning of the relationship? So, what was those conversations like when you first got together about how you would frame your relationship going forward?
Well, Kyle, that's an excellent question because at the beginning of our dating relationship, we were able to outline what our values and expectations were. I remember Charnel told me right from the beginning that she doesn't just date to date, that she was looking for a life partner. And that was refreshing and also something that I was doing. And so right from the beginning, we began to talk about our values, our family's values, our expectations for going forward as a dating couple. And that really gave us a framework for what a marriage might look like at that time. We were a long distance couple in the first few years dating. So we dated 6 years overall. But it was that conversation at the beginning of values that set the foundation for what we would, or how we would put it up that way in relation to our Christianity.
I love that. My dating just date. I need a roadmap. Where are we going with this? That's good. That's real good. What about you guys?
So actually, when we first started dating, we were Well, we first went through our marriage program at Faithful Central. Even before we were members, right? Before we were members of Faithful Central, we did the marriage prep program, and we were also looking through books. There was, I don't remember the name of the book, but we had done, like, it was like a workbook that we decided to do together to talk about the things that we might not naturally talk about before marriage and really decide if this was something that we, wanted to do. So we talked about finances and past relationships and all those things that are taboo when you're first dating someone, because you're like, this is the date stage, we ain't getting married, but we knew that we had been through relationships that didn't work, in the past. And so we were intentional about doing something different. And so, yeah, we did books, we did the marriage prep program, and those built foundations in our marriage that we still, after almost 11 years, it'll be 11 years next month, that we still hold today. The whole, when we fight, there will be fighting. We fight fair. We don't go below the belt, and there always has to, even if we agree to disagree at the moment, there has to be a resolution between the two of us. We will never hold anything against the other. I know one thing that we decided when we were dating was that we would never walk out on each other. No matter how mad we got, we're in this together. So we gotta figure it out. We ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. So how we gonna resolve this? How because we're in this. So those are just some basic tools that we picked up while dating.
In the early stages, when we first started dating, we were actually on
Staff
staff
together.
at a church, and we were over the youth. So that was one thing that we really cared about, is we knew that all eyes are going to be on us during our courting stages, and that we had to be really impressionable with teenagers. Some were family, felt like family, and we just did not want to set an example of anything that would steer them wrong. So that was another layer that really helped keep us accountable during our dating stage, that they're learning how to do this because they're watching us. So we were very careful to kind of be honest and show the challenges that getting to know someone else, what that was like. So that was another layer for us.
I will make the recommendation, we did the central marriage prep program as well, workshop as well, that any type of marriage prep type of workshop, it doesn't have to be a Faithful Central, but something that gives you a foundational balance, and as the case said, something that also makes you have those conversations prior to getting married, so that you know what each other's values are and what each other wants to see and accomplish.
Exactly. It's vitally important. I deal with a lot of couples who never put in the time to want to learn each other and to build or plan what their marriage would look like. And so when it takes turns from what they idealistically believe, they lose their mind and break down and become totally, right? When it's just really re-engaging and understanding, hey, what is this supposed to really look like? What is this supposed to? And so premarital counseling, conversations, is always great to have. Reading books. I love that you guys read books together and build upon a firm foundation and laying that foundation with your marriage. Love that. So building up on that, I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to people who are trying or looking at getting there? Like, what tool, what is the first step?
You have to be a good forgiver. It's a daily, every day you are in some way either asking for or giving forgiveness. You're bearing with one another's weaknesses and loving one another through seasons that change and life. We just came out of a pandemic, so there's all of these unexpected challenges that happen. And I think that for conversations that we've had with couples, there's all these things that people have, like, this is a deal breaker. I'm not, there's no way that I can get past. And if you go into there, that kind of thinking really stifles your experience with one another. Because if you come into the marriage or any relationship with this idea that if this person does this, then all bets are off, then you limit your own, when you're in a situation where you are standing in your feet and you need the grace, and you need the patience, you create all of these laws that, come back to really hurt your relationship in the long run. I think that is one of the biggest lessons. And that's something that I was like on the job training, because that's not something that you really can teach someone else, I don't remember my parents sitting me down and teaching me how to forgive, teaching me how to really move past any type of disagreements and how to love, even platonic friendship relationships. You have people who are friends even for 20 years and there's a disagreement and you're not speaking anymore. So there's this, I feel like the society that we live in now, that everything is so cut and dry. When you're coming into marriage, it just can't be that way because we're always constantly in these positions where we need to give and we need to receive grace.
I think the first thing for any individual who is in a relationship and thinking about marriage, coming from a Christian point of view, is to understand whether you're ready to be a husband or wife. We spend a lot of time judging their partner, whether they're a good wife or a good husband, and the question needs to be turned around. Am I ready to be a husband? Am I ready to live up to what God said a wife should? And so when you apply God's standards, then it really gets you to look at your own standards where there are differences. Because as Joanna said, you will be tested by time and by circumstance. Whether or not you are ready to have the kind of faith that it takes you to have the kind of resilience it takes and be willing to forgive and reconcile, which is a daily thing. Then if you can't answer yes to those, then you're simply not ready. Forget about your partner. You're not ready.
Right.
And so considering that as a baseline question, among some other things, is really simple.
I know I always say that if you want a better wife, be a better husband. If you want a better husband, be a better wife. Right? How in your relationship, what are some of the things that you did to be that better?
I have a prayer closet. I really do. I don't have the one like the movie set up, but I've learned in the moment, like even being a leader, it hasn't happened yet, but to have this conversation with God, like, did you hear him? Yeah, and I don't want you to do anything about that. And I'm like, but I didn't him. And God's like, no, just let it go. Or, Father, what do I say to this? Or what do I do? And so it's really my connection with with God, with my father talking about, and I talk about God the Father. How do I walk this out? How do I do that? And that has really sustained me over 27 years to be able to stay here, because every day is not a better person. There are some days that you're just angry and you're upset about where you are in life. I think the scene in Viola Davis won her Oscar for when she says, "I've been here every day with you," and yeah, fences, and I who made me think I didn't have hopes and dreams, and I think that happens to both spouses. But the end point that you're getting to, and the kids and the grandkids, life and others that you blessed through your marriage is what it's about. And so I had to have a prayer closet. Because I'm sure I could have been Viola Davis.
I've really learned from Charnel. One of the things, whether you were dating or you were in a marital relationship, you know, you're the
Recording in
person
progress.
that they are. And I have learned through trial and error, but particularly Charnel's model. She is someone who is quick to anger, quick to forgive. First started thinking, I noticed that. But I was the opposite, slow to anger, slow to forgive.
Very, very slow.
So, so how do two people with those different styles, where she might have gotten upset, but now she's over, and ready to forgive and ready to move on, but now here I am in my case, unwilling to come out. Over time, we have rubbed off on them. We have become what the Bible says: be slow to anger, but quick to forgive. She was my model on learning how to forgive. I've been her model on being slower to anger. And so in a relationship, you begin to rub off on one another as you see the proper model displayed before the Lord. Like I said, it's through trial and error, and it's through ups and downs, but you end up finding.
Chris?
I think, one thing that you learn very quickly, as cliche as it sounds, is that marriage is very selfless. And so you have to learn how to, and I completely understand where Clifton is coming from, because I am the same way. I am very slow to become angry. It takes a lot, but once I'm there, it takes me a minute to, unthaw. Thank you.
Not much
You know.
like me. I had to wait months.
I am naturally one of those who is the Libra in me, forgive me, but I am naturally one of those that can literally turn you off. I can completely turn a blind eye to you even sitting next to me. It's a blessing and a curse. It is, but I have learned it had become more of a curse in our marriage. And I had to break that, we would get into a disagreement, or an intense fellowship as to call them. And I would shut down. Be like, oh, I'm done. I don't have anything else to say for days. I'd just be like, she'd walk in the house, I'd be like, I don't need to see. But that was, and I had to learn how much damage that was doing to our marriage and to her, and myself. So, it was that turning point that said, okay, I cannot, we got to deal with whatever this is, whatever issue we're having, whatever problem we're having, we're going to get through this. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I think we've ever gotten was one of our mentor couples, so simple, but so profound just said, it won't always be like this. Whatever it is, you won't always be here. So get through here and get to the next and then deal with the next, like and ever since then, our whole marriage has just taken a complete 180. Like we resolve things. So what took us days takes us an hour. You know, like we might be, I'll be like, give me a minute. You know, just give me a second. We'll come back to this. And then we'll come together and be like, all right, so how do we get through this? And it's like, what's for dinner? What are we having? We got these kids to deal with now. Now we got to be back on each other's team because. So no, I think that is highly important in what we've learned that it won't.
I think the question was about something that we learned
Or
about.
something that you've done to be a better
Oh, okay.
wife.
Thank you.
Have a better.
I think that for me, especially in the beginning, I was single for a really long time before we got married, and in my profession, I had a lot of single friends. So for me, I think it took me time to know that some of my sharing and venting was honoring my what I shared and when I shared it, who I went to for advice, that they didn't have resolutions for me, that I needed to go within me and within our marriage to kind of find those solutions. And of course, with the best intention. But I think that I was so used to having my girlfriend circle be my sounding board on any issue, whether it was work related or things that came up with my family and things like that, that I didn't realize that you get married, that shifts a little bit. And there's a level of protection, there's a level of care and respect that you give your spouse that's different than any other relationship that you have. So I think that, there was a moment where, like, I'm venting, but I send the text about him to him. And I remember that was early on, and I didn't realize the damage that could do. And he felt disrespected because he's like, you're having a conversation about me. Is this what y'all talk about? And I had to check myself, and I had to remember that, not everything, this is a sacred bond. It's not for public consumption, not all of it, Not that if there was anything wrong that my friend wouldn't be able to, support me, and I'm not saying you should live in isolation, but I am saying that there are certain components over time. I learned that I need to, like Chanel said, get in my prayer closet, journal, reflect on myself, reflect on what I'm doing and what I'm adding, instead of immediately calling someone else to say, girl, let me tell you, and it wasn't helpful. So I think the moment that I was able to really give him the respect that he deserved, even in our disagreement, in our moments of dysfunction, I think that it helped that resolve. It helped that him come around quicker, because I'm like, okay, well, I can't talk to nobody else, so we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to figure it out with one another. And I think that is something that really guarded us and protected us from anyone, because not everyone has your best interest. Specifically when it comes to marriage that they don't have experience with. So I think that over time, I just learned to lean in prayer, lean into him, and then even trust my own judgment. Not everything is a sounding board, but I can trust my own, experience to know what to do in certain situations.
I like that. One thing that I've learned that we tend to go to our village, our people who are familiar with us for advice when we're stuck, instead of going to the person that's connected to us. I love what you said, you have to stop that and actually now it's forced that you got. And it also eliminates the chatter and removes obstacles from God being. Sometimes you gotta say, "Give your first time, be quiet." And then listen and follow, so that's great, that's great. I'm gonna start this with you guys, but then I want you guys to chime in as well, but in your relationship, 27 years, I know that there's been some storm. Many of us have, whether it's the pandemic or the storm in the relationship, and we call it strain. A lot of couples get into trouble because they never anticipated the storms. And so what did, in the 27 years of being guys been happy, let's go again. It's a very real thing. What describe a problem or a storm that you guys had and how you overcame
Storm. I'm gonna describe it, not so much a storm, but probably cloudy weather. Lasted for a long time. That I didn't know if it would change. So, and this is not as deep as maybe some other examples could be. In our relationship, I am what is commonly known as the meat. Everything has its place. I can't function in clutter. I need to have an organized area. And that's what I am able to operate. Charnel has her own organizing principles that she can operate as she moves with a lot of different things in a different way that I didn't consider tight. And so I was wearing Charnel out with, you got to pick up behind yourself. You got to, this belongs over here. So I was chasing her down with my way of doing it. And that created a lot of tension between us because I was trying to enforce my standards upon her. It wasn't until we began to have children, a few years in marriage, where I realized that I had to change, that I was creating an environment of tension, an environment in which it was hard to live with me. Okay. And so having children, as we began to have children, I could see that it's actually impossible to keep them. There's no way to account for this person over here and this person over here.
No way.
And all of that. And so I said, the environment that I'm creating in the home is one that's very difficult to live. And it's me who has to change, not the other person. So many times our focus is on what the other person can do to change, how fast they can change, and how many times you told them they can change. When God asks you to change, and He'll handle the other person.
Right.
Interesting. I wouldn't classify you as necessarily neat her.
Well, of course you.
We have different tolerances and different styles. And so, and Clifton comes from a family of teachers and lawyers. And so he's a lecturer. And he wants to make sure. So I don't like closing the linen closet door, everything behind it is just a mess. He's okay with that. I'm like, if it can stay right there, the clothes can stay right there, so I fold them and put them in. So it's just a level of how you like organization. But he's right. You have gotten better. We were married a week and cleaning up the apartment. He goes, that's not how you do it. You're supposed to clean the you're supposed to clean the bathroom like
You
this.
gotta put your elbow into it. Down in there, it's gonna clean.
And
And you're using the wrong sponge. That has the other side that you can.
And he married an empowered black woman, strong black woman. I was like, well, you got, you do it, you do it. And so 27 years later, he's still the only one.
That's not what I intended. My approach was wrong.
So that's part of that lesson of learning how to do it. But yes, having 6 children, and I think we gave you the wrong ages. That tells you you're on cloud 9 and empty nesters. They are 17 through 24. But you put something down and you turn around, you go back and go, what happened to it?
I have come through and cleaned everything up.
Or the kids have picked it up and they're using it right now. So we have definitely learned to be better, not fuss at each other about things.
The biggest suggestion for us is having kids, period, having small children. We have our 2 oldest sons that are 16 months apart. So we went from enjoying each other, having what felt like twins. And that was a big adjustment. And I know that I'm not alone. A lot of times for me, what the struggle was that it felt like my life shifted and he was able to continue doing everything that he was doing for kids. And that, that built some resentment because I'm like, hello, I'm here. I'm sinking in diapers and bottles and all of these things. And he just had to, after multiple conversations, I don't know what you need all the time. I think I was assuming, you don't see that I'm stressed. You don't see that I am overwhelmed. And it really was a lesson for us in communication. He was willing and able to do all the things that I needed. It was just a matter of how, we were able to communicate that. I mean, it's still a challenge. We have a 2-year-old now. So it's just constantly trying to find moments for one another. It's still a challenge to figure out. but I would say that was a hurdle.
No, I would agree. I think that when we first had kids, that was when we got that advice that won't always be like this. And so that really was a major adjustment storm, as you put it, for us, because it was learning how to navigate with children, navigate our marriage with our children. And for lack of a better term, in spite of our children, I think too often all of the focus is put on the children, and then you build a wall of separation between spouses sometimes that way. And I think one of the things that we had to learn how to do, before we had kids, we could pick up and go anywhere. It's like, oh, what are we doing this weekend? Let's go up to San Francisco. Oh, okay. Let's go down to San Diego. Let's go here. Let's go there. And once our kids came, it was like, we at the house. All right. We at the house again, another weekend. All right. And so we had to learn how to navigate with our children. So we started taking them on trips with us sometimes, on trips with us, and finding that village that was able to step in and help, whether it be grandma or auntie, godparents, so that we could continue to have time together. So that was a major hurdle, because it was hurting us.
Especially that first child for me, I don't know. I got it. You're not changing his diaper the way you're supposed to. You got to do this. It was like, well, if I want him to help, you can't limit how to help with the help with him, So it was just such I never had a child before. I never, felt that connection, that mama bear. Like even my mom, I'm like, I don't trust her. Yeah, I know you raised me, but I don't. You never raised him, So there was this like, for me, that process of letting go of some of that control and focusing on my husband, and knowing that like he's as important, and finding that time. We do much better. Why they're not here.
So digging a little deeper. Tell me, like, what was that ingredient? What was it that you received from your spouse in a difficult moment that helped you know that you love them?
That's a really good question, because sometimes you don't figure out what that is until you're a few years old. But I'm reminded of the origin story of Adam and Eve, because Eve was taken Adam's side. So what was built into Eve, Adam received. So there are things that Eve had that Adam didn't know about until certain circumstances came about. Over the years, there have been situations with family or our children that were either confusing to me or I didn't have the answer for. And Charnel's intuition, her calmness about whatever that situation was exactly what was needed at that time. I realized I wouldn't have reacted that way. But that was exactly what needed to be said or what needed to be done. And so when I think about an ingredient in Charnel, it is her faith that comes through in times of trouble, that has always blessed me, blessed my family. And that's when you realize I did pick the right one. We don't make it through. And because of that ingredient, the faith that she has with bad news, where you have to do something. Really quick example is with my parents who live out of town, and I have to go see about on occasion. Charnel is someone who is all about family, not just our family, but the extended family. And so when there's crisis or there's urgent need, she doesn't hesitate to release me to go take care of that issue and then welcome me back. But not everybody reacts like that. And so that's the ingredient of faith and family. That's always shown.
I would say I am naturally go with the flow kind of a guy. So I'm like, everything will work itself out, kind of don't stress, it's gonna happen, it's gonna come to pass. I think one thing that I have learned from her is her level of preparation. My wife is a teacher, so she's very plan A. It gotta be plan A. So and making sure that we have the steps in place. We gotta do this, then this, and this, and this. And I think that over the years, it has. I even still now, I'm still more along the it'll be fine, we'll work through it, whatever happens, and we'll deal with that later. But I'm more
absolutely make sure that we have a plan in place. Just in case,
It actually does work. It might actually work if we go with the plan. So I think that ingredient has kind of helped, kind of shift me to be a little bit more, responsible, so to speak, in how we do things, how we plan for our family, how we plan for our lives and our marriage and things like that, how we go about doing things. Because it was neat. I was just like, I'll deal with it. I'll do that. Very much a bad thing. When it happens, I ain't worried about it. Do I have the money to pay for this? Yeah, let's wait till it gets turned off before I actually pay.
Caught up every month, every month. And I don't understand why, you do. So when we were in our premarital, I was like, I gotta do the finances because I'm not getting my phone cut off. But you can pay the bills. So it was definitely.
It was right back on in a couple
But
hours.
but every month, it was hilarious. For me, the ingredient at the moment I knew for sure was we were dating and I had to get a procedure done and I had to get, it was I don't know, something crazy early. And my mom was supposed to take me to the, he beat me to the hospital. And was the last person I saw before going into the procedure and the first person I saw when I got out. And it was that moment in my, not to divulge too much, but I did not have a history of being able to trust the men in my life to stand up and say and do what they said they were going to do. And that was huge for me because it let me know that I didn't have to carry the burden by myself. But there was someone who was not only willing but wanted to take that load and cover me. And that was and it in that way. I feel like I'm able to exist and with the freedom because I know if I fall, I'm not falling by myself.
I'm thinking of how to conceptualize about Clifton, and it is that strength. It is that you said covering, but it Clifton has a way of approaching life, and it's funny. I didn't know for a couple of months ago how he couched it. And he was like, I don't care what else, but it's a strength to be so sure and have integrity in yourself, just be solid. He's just solid. And so that allows me to, okay, I can trust where my heart is placed. I can trust that he has taught me so many different things, show me a different side of men. And my dad's a good man, but the different side of men that I had this crazy notion that men was what most men are supposed to do, like how they react, how they go. But he's just solid, and that's made it easier to be all that I am. He's not worried. Are we in this together? We in this together. All right, we can figure all the rest of it out later. And so that's been, I know he'll protect me to my family. He'll tell everybody, he told me one time that something happened. I was in playgroups and stuff with family members. Something happened with his family. And it was about me. And he was like, I will cut them all off, including my 80-some-year-old grandmother for you. You always do because I'm a family person. And he's like, no, it's me and you. I will cut your family. And stuff happened with me and my family of origin. He was like, I'll cut them off. We cut them off too. It's about us. And so it's that strength, that inner strength that I just know he will take care of. He will allow God to take care of. And so that is something. And as we were all talking, I know for those who are thinking about dating or in a relationship, trying to figure out if I get married or in a marriage, and you're like, oh, I want something like that. Well, understand, Chris is Joanna, and Joanna is Chris. I couldn't be married to Chris. Joanna couldn't be married to Clifton. Clifton is mine, Charnel is Clifton. We have our own crazy, we have our own grade, and everybody, every relationship has that. And so instead of coveting or being jealous or looking for something else, pour into yourself and find out what's yours. Because we talked about earlier, like venting, and I do things, but I have why who walk with me. And one of the best things one of us did when we were going through something, like, yeah, Clifton's crazy, but he's yours. He's your crazy. He's for you. He was driving me crazy. And it was like, and so I say that to encourage you that whatever has been given to you, cherish it because it's yours and it's perfectly built for you.
Yes, that was it.
Because it's so true to that. We look at other people's relationship and we want that, but we're not willing to do the work to have what is actually for us. And so when you're learning those foundational principles, faith is what I think help get you through having faith in each other. Plan, understanding the importance of planning, not just for the good, but also for the bad. What happens if somebody loses that? Somebody loses it. And what happens if you're in that for better and for worse season? You know, and then you really having this tough conversation, and then responsibility. If you wait till things get cut off, I'm gonna but it wasn't. I've seen so many couples go, this ain't one for me, right? Or one little thing.
Right.
Instead of saying, well, this is what God created me to do, because I'm good at that. So I'll take that from him. We ain't got to worry about the phone bill being put on, and I can always reach him. He don't have to worry about trying to come up with an excuse why it happened. Right. And so it's important, it's vital that we are those things. And we create that, like you said, what's for me. I know I told my wife when we were dating, our first date, 15 minutes in, to get all the nice to see you, she could do it, and we begin to discuss how we're going to move forward. And the first thing I told her was, I'm about big much. It's not easy being in a relationship with me because of the demand and how I move from pastor, house, business, all those things. So it's like, if you're ready to be sure, you can be these things, that this is not the ideal to marry a position or a title, but to marry a man. And no big deal. Let's be down to but she gave me that confidence that she wanted to have a relationship that the two of us not an ideal, so left with pressure of trying to be somebody I'm not. I always say, look, this is who I am. Love me, believe me, but this is who I am. And the same is, loving her.
Say it.
She has this quiet story. She brings about peace, and she's a planner. She's playing. We had a discussion this week about my lack of planning as far as like events, things for us to do, and I just look, this is your thing. I'm not planning because I look at the numbers. Think, oh, these dots are not connected. Whereas she knows how to make it work. Right? So she having that building that type of relationship.
That's what makes it difficult when you're single or you're dating. We are often in comparison mode. I want that, I want a little of this, etc. When every relationship is like an individual fingerprint. And that fingerprint belongs to those two people. Can't find that fingerprint over there, and under here, wherever it is. So it's something that is achieved through friendship, going through a few things together to find out how the other person handles stress, how they handle good times. Some people are worse when things go well than when things are going wrong. So how do they handle it? How do I handle things with them? As you're going through your single period or your dating period, those are the things to form that individual.
Like that. I'm gonna borrow that. I'll give you credit.
Sure.
How much time? do you have?
Let me look. Got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Do you have any questions?
That's what I put in here. Let me go back to the chat. And I asked, and then, unless Adrian, do you want to ask a question? Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay.
So the question I have, how do you continue to nurture your marriage? How do you keep the nurturing in there? I heard the stories. Some of it is, you wasn't on the same page, but you figured out a way to stay on the same page or to get on the same page. What are some of the other things you do or have done to nurture your marriage?
That's a really good question. Charnel and I wrote First Fruits of Marriage to answer that specific question. First Fruits of Marriage deals with the fruits that God says your relationship producing. And so what we try to do is put together something that allowed couples to be intentional about what they did together. The common notion is that, well, love is spontaneous. You don't bring me flowers anymore. Or you don't fix this for dinner anymore. Whatever, as if it's supposed to happen out of thin air, like it may have used to happen. But when you're married, and you have children, your schedules, your work schedules, et cetera, are literally pulling you apart. And unless you are intentional about coming together, whether it's a date night or date afternoon or date morning, whether it's having dinner as a family or as a couple every evening, you have to intentionally plan moments of quality time together that are consistent so that you don't spin in different ways, which is what commonly happens to you. You have to be intentional about planning those areas of interaction that bring you together. One of the things that when I'm mentoring men who say, we have trouble talking. We don't communicate well. I say, walk and talk. Take your wife, take your girlfriend on a short walk around the neighborhood or around the park. And that quality time together create this communication, this talking about anything and everything that will bring back the intimacy that is missing from the couple that is not intersecting.
And then one of the things, so we had 6 children in 6 years. We had six under 6. And she didn't turn 7 until about 6 weeks after, 8 weeks after the youngest was born. And one of the things that we did, we joined ministry together because we ended up being a part of the marriage birth ministry, as it was called at the time. Now it's a little bit different. But the other thing is, my husband is a program through and through, leads, cardinal, and gold. And so since he graduated USC, he's been a season ticket holder. And so what I ended up doing, hey mom, can you watch the kids? Because I'm going, date night is going to the SC football.
So I had to buy another season ticket.
And
How is this gonna work?
and so we went to Trojan football game. Right? I didn't realize that was a year-long thing, because we didn't just have fall football, you had spring
Oh,
summer. So anyway, and.
To commit.
It's
it was a commitment.
But we did things like that, and so, that was our time getting away and reinvesting into our marriage. And we made intentional, the kids went to sleep before Netflix was streaming. We went to Blockbuster and went and bought video. Yes, I'm aging myself, but, rented video. And after we put the kids to bed, and we were intentional about the kids' schedule. You cannot sleep. This is my bed. This is our bed. Fair. I will sleep in your bed till you fall. You cannot sleep in our bed. Yes, exactly. So, we can have them revolving door. No. But we were intentional about doing that, and we were intentional about putting us first. Kids are more settled when their parents put themselves first.
Yes.
In their relationship first. They feel more comfortable.
That principle applies to your family of origin, your friends, your coworkers, etc. They all fall in line when the couple is intentional about who comes first, what.
So now that we're empty nesters, we were in Orleans for a weekend, did not think about the kids. And they're sitting at the house when we come in the door with their foot tapping. Like, where y'all been? Y'all not thinking about us. And they laugh, no, we want you doing it. But it's being intentional. So now that we are empty nesters, we can go back to, hey, are we going to San Francisco this weekend? Are we going? So it's putting the breadcrumbs along the way so that you can pick up and have full local bread, the rest of the bread after they are moved on. Because we're raising them to do exactly what we did. I love him, Mama. You don't know what you're talking about. And they go off, marry somebody, their own thing. And so we want to continue that connection with one another.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's excellent. Just to piggyback on that, that's exactly what we do to nurture our marriage. Because we were firm believers of, our marriage comes first. Yes, we have kids and we have young kids, like she said, 8, 7, and 2. And so it's finding that time together, away from the kids, because once they're gone, if we have not nurtured us, then we're gonna fall apart. How many marriages end in divorce after the kids are gone? Because there was no relationship there. There was nothing to keep and hold them together. So we will get rid of them real quick. Quickly, Mom, can you take them for the weekend? And we will be gone. We just celebrated 10 years last year and went to Paris. So we're just like, we're extremely intentional. I just have to say, babe, our anniversary is next month. What are we doing? Where are we going? I don't care if it's a staycation. I don't want them around. I don't want to be in the house with them. Where are we going? So we are extremely intentional about taking care of us first, because if we don't, then we can't effectively take care of our children. And this is like Charnel said, this is something that they're seeing. They're seeing how mommy and daddy, get along, how they interact, how they go away. And they're so used to it. Now they're like, bye, mommy, bye, daddy. The 2-year-old, he knows. Am I going to Granny's house today? Yes, we are. We're on he knows when we get off the freeway this morning. We get off the freeway. He said, Daddy, we go to Granny Boo's house. Yep, that is exactly where you were going. He knows that when we get off the freeway on this exit, that's where you're going. But it's just, so much to the point. We were in Paris for 15. But we went to Israel a few years ago, and we were gone for 10, 11 days. But the kids are so used to, they were used to mommy and daddy being here, but they're also used to mommy and daddy being with each other. And so they don't, they'll get to the point where they miss us, and she gets to the point where she misses them. And I'm like, they'll be all right, we'll see them when we get back, She's like, you wanna talk to, no. FaceTime them, no.
But I think that sometimes, that's not our everyday reality. We don't
Right.
always get to these elaborate trips. So we always say we find pockets of time. So if the kids are, I'm a teacher, but our children are in a different district. So some days I have off that they have to go to school, and we are the first in drop off, and then we will go to breakfast, or we'll go for a walk, or we try to put them down early, and then we'll have a show that we only watch. And, don't go to the next episode without me, because it's not always about spending money or leaving them. Sometimes we have to find our time, even when they're around. On the weekend, we'll put them down, and yes, our kids are big. We still put them down for naps. Self-preservation. So, they'll go down for a nap, and then we'll get to watch a show or get to talk, or, just enjoy each other's time. I remember someone told us, because I usually have to get to work fairly early, and I would get to work and set up my classroom and just call him 20 minutes. We're talking, or, that call on the way home, or then he had a long commute on his way home. So he would call me and talk. It's just knowing, of course, each other's love languages, but I needed that connection. I needed to have an adult voice talking to me at some point in the day that wasn't demanding something from me, So just in addition to planning bigger times away from them, but just finding these little moments where we can where we can lay everything down and no one is expecting, and I was telling him the other day, I had a really bad day at work, and I was like, the whole day I was just really anxious, and I got home and climbed right next to him, and I was like, I just needed you. It wasn't even, my day I'm gonna go back to the same crazy that I left yesterday, but it was something about just the presence of being able to kind of breathe, and finding those moments, making those moments, can you watch them for a couple hours, please? And finding those times really help sustain me specifically, because like you said, he can be in the house and the rooms are burning around him. Like, you don't hear these kids screaming at the top of their lungs, and he's completely unfazed. Whereas I am very much triggered by all of them. We have 3 boys, so our house is very loud all the time. So just finding those moments of peace with him really helps nurture.
And the last thing I would say is, even though we have our time together, we have our time with our kids, but nurturing ourselves together, we also do individually. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, then I can't effectively help and take care of my wife. And so one thing that we do every single year, we make it a point, if we have what we call a dadcation and a momcation, where I go off by myself on a trip. It'd be a day, maybe 2, and most of those are staycations, but just a way where I don't have to be husband, I don't have to be dad, I don't have to be boss, I don't have to, be minister or music director, all this stuff that is demanding me and my time, where I can just sit and do whatever I want. If I want to just sleep, I can sleep. If I want to just watch TV, I can watch TV, and I don't have to have the demands of being who I am every day to someone else. And she gets to do the same. She will go off. And usually now I'm a little better at it than she is. I will get there and I'll be like, I'll call you when I get there and let you know I made a save. And then I will talk to you when I talk to you, when I get back, or I'll call that night just to say good night to everybody. And then that's it. Now, she'll go away and be like, I want to talk to you. I'll be like, no, enjoy you, and most of the time, I'll have to do it, like, I'll have to book something for her. Because she won't do, she's mom, and so, I'll be like, babe, you need to.
Cause I'm getting on everybody's nerves. By that point, I'm getting on everybody's nerves. So it is time.
Time for your momcation. I'm gonna book it for you. And you just be ready. You just pack a bag and you be ready to go. So we get that, one weekend a year where we just get to breathe and just say, you know what, I don't have responsibility this week. I can just relax and chill and kind of rejuvenate myself so that I can go back and be the husband, be the father, be the wife, be the mother that, God has really he wants us to be. So we take time for ourselves and with each other to help her.
One day I had 6, he came in the house and I had 6 crayon boxes around me, all these crayons. And he said, what are you doing? Is dinner ready? And I was like, I am. Back in the That's all I can think. That's all I can think about right now. And then the next time he said, you are going to Pasadena Hilton. Your Bert Williams book for you, and you will not have a car. I'm dropping you off. I was like, I want a car. I was like, no. And it was the best weekend that he had booked for me, just like, because all I could do was get the cerulean, each cerulean in each box. Each green.
I'm like,
Really, I'm like.
what's that about?
No, that's the 24 or 36 box frame.
The pack crayon.
With 6 of them.
That's a lot of people to buy for.
All right, so I know we're a little bit over time, so I want to close this out. Marriage is something you live as you develop your roadmap of how you build your marriage and what your marriage is. You have to keep nurturing it. You have to be intentional. You have to put into your marriage, but it is supposed to be something that you live, not talked about, not something that you just dream about, but you actually live it. So the good, the bad, some of the ugly, but most of the beautiful. And you learn to live your marriage. So with that said, you guys be blessed. I hope this was something that helped.
Yeah.
And keep on living your best life.
All right. Stephanie, you're gonna close us out.
All right, thank you so much. This was awesome. Yes. Beautiful. I do have one question. How do you guys keep it intimate? So you're on the calendar, so you got to create dates.
Yeah, life will. You gotta prioritize it, just like everything else. You put work on the calendar, churches on the calendar, so you gotta put time. I'm not saying that you can't be spontaneous, but you also need to make sure that not non-negotiable.
So I'm inviting each and every one to our next growing subject. And the topic is going to be on the 5 levels. So finding your level. All right, so with Ms. Ojo, we want you to come on up, sweetheart, and close her out. Close it out. Little information about BWW. Next going in section would be August 17th, and it's via Zoom. So just go to our website and click on this, it says 7 o'clock, it's via Zoom as well. September is going to be in person. Yes. You guys are amazing.
Yes, yes. I can't wait for this to go up on our website. I know people will be calling me.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Audra Jones. So I was glad to pop in. And it sounds like the foundation of each of your relationships is the Lord, so that's always very pleasing to me. And just glad that you were able to take the time out of your day to be a part of the work that Black Women for Wellness is doing. I've been a 27-year volunteer with Black Women for Wellness. Primarily, the work has been centered around advocacy for Black women and girls in Los Angeles County, but also really working on the work that we can do for our families. So super excited about this because it is helping too for some of the work that we're doing as we work on our Black infant and maternal health to save Black moms and babies. And have built a lot of policy work in LA County to support our families. So would love for you to just really stay in touch with us, connected, join any of our activations and engagement. And we really just, again, thank you for being here. I'm also a board champion with the organization. So we also look for new board members still. So if by chance you're interested, you can let myself know or Nidra. And thank you. That's right. Did you invite them for the conference?
I will invite them to the conference. I will comp y'all tickets. I got some free tickets. Okay, so I will end this now. All right.